It's been a while since Justin and I have spoke via Zoom. So there's a few things that we wanted to start with. You may have questions in these regards anyway. First of all, the background that I have behind me is some phrases, words that we use for Jazz DNA. And we thought it was appropriate with the background. It's not all of them. I wasn't able to get it all in the electronic background, but we thought it was quite appropriate to start this with, again, public condolences to Jerry Sloan's family and friends. Again, our background, those words that is defined by what we call now Jazz DNA. Jerry embodied all of those traits and characteristics, and we miss him dearly. We look forward to, frankly, living up to the standards, the high standards that he set from a Jazz DNA standpoint. The second thing that we wanted to mention as well is just a public goodbye and thank you to Walt Perrin. He's a consummate professional and gentleman. We all learned a lot. Frankly, it's going to take us, Justin and myself, a little time to re-engineer his role and subsequently the front office, but we very much look forward to that challenge. With that, in talking about senior management, as you all saw yesterday, we want to again formally welcome Steve Smith to our management team, our senior management team. We look forward to learning and growing with Steve. As I'd mentioned before on the previous call, his performance during our COVID-19 date of March 12th to get everybody home safely went above and beyond. But his promotion was not just because of those reasons. He just has great knowledge of Salt Lake City, of the LHM Corporation, of our arena, of our practice facility. He has the full confidence of ownership, management, and players that he constantly serves. His is a real service-based role, and so this senior management position is well deserved. Next, we'd like to congratulate Bart Taylor and Martin Schiller for Executive and Coach of the Year honors. We're really proud of Bart, the hard work that he's put in. He's grown immensely. He and Martin got off to a tough start their first year together. They stuck together, and really our G League is now working how we intended it when we moved it to Salt Lake City. We're developing executives, coaches, trainers, strength and conditioning coaches, obviously players like George Niang, Tony Bradley, and many on our roster. So I'm extremely pleased at our level, and Bart and Martin deserve kudos for a lot of hard work. Jonathan Reinhardt as well. And then the last thing I want to mention before we take questions, it's important for us as a management team to let the public know we fully support our players and Quinn on their social justice efforts. We're really proud of each player and coach and how thoughtful they've been, how hardworking they've been, both internally on measures that we're taking hold of with the Jazz, and also speaking out towards discrimination and oppression. So with that, Justin and I can answer any questions you may have.
Okay, great, thanks. We are going to go ahead and get started. Just a reminder, please note who you're asking the question to before you say your question. First person will be David James, KUTV. David?
This is for Dennis. Dennis, along the social justice line there are a lot of people in town who've worked in nonprofit social justice issues who would have loved to partner with jazz players going back long before you were here, but their privacy is guarded for obvious reasons of their celebrity. Will that change a little bit? Will you help them partner up with people in the community, or will it be more silos and they'll do their own thing and not connect with people in the community?
David, it's an excellent question, and I appreciate the question. So what we do from a management perspective, and Justin can speak to this a little bit because he's an agent. So the players are required their CR commitments contractually, and so that process is quite dynamic. Obviously, DJ, the time that the players spend, there's a constant internal negotiation process that includes Quinn, includes the player, many times the player's family, the player's agent, those who do reach out. And ultimately, time is a greatest resource. So there's a lot of things that Rudy will do, Donovan will do, Mike Conley will do that is jazz related inside of CR. There's also some things that each player and sometimes coaches, frankly, and management do on their own. But one thing that we try to do whenever there is a request, we immediately take that to our community relations department. We take that, if it's an individual player, we take that to the player and his agent, and then they make those determinations. So it's hard for me to volunteer, frankly, someone else's time, but it's a well-placed question. And if there are important foundations and charities that we can contribute to, and you as an example, I think you've reached out to me more than once on a few particular things. We're certainly open to the conversation, as long as someone, if the answer doesn't go your way, just give, and many times we have to give polite no's to request. Justin, would you add anything to that? Is there anything that I'm missing there?
The only thing that I would add is that a lot of our players, our community relations and our player services team meet with each player at every year and find out what's most important to them. And then they try to arrange with community organizations or causes to get behind. I think, David, again, just as Dennis, can't speak for everyone, but because of our players' voices and them wanting to be heard, I think you could see them maybe proactively reaching out a little bit more, and we try to facilitate in whichever way we can, both ways, whether it's an organization asking or our players saying, hey, this is something I really want to get behind. Who's good in the community to help me accomplish that?
Thanks, David, for the question.
Okay, next question will be from Ben Anderson, KSL Sports.
This is for Dennis. Hey, Dennis, I was a little unclear. Did you have the ability to sign somebody to replace Boyan after his injury to take down to Orlando? And if you do choose to replace somebody, how does that process work for you guys internally?
So Boyan, we do not have the ability to have a +1 on our roster. Those are for COVID-19 positive test. So inside of the player personnel window that the league gave us, I believe starting, when was that, Justin? On the 22nd, 23rd of June. Does that sound right? We would have had to waive a player to add a player, if you will. Now, obviously, things are quite fluid. Our health performance team and our coaches have really performed really well to create a safe environment. So to date, as we know it, we haven't had any COVID-19 positive test. The players, coaches, Justin's part of the Disney campus group. We're currently going through those protocols, but obviously this testing is basically been every day and is quite dynamic and obviously could change. One thing aside, Ben, it is the process to get a player on our roster and the quarantine period a new player would have to go through was material for us to bring our two ways, Justin Wright Foreman and Jarrell Brantley. We wanted them to be in Orlando at the Disney campus in case something were to happen, because those guys, the success that they had with the Salt Lake City Stars, their development, their current levels, we thought that in replacement, those were two of our better options.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, next question, Eric Walden, Tribune.
Hey guys, thanks for taking the time. My question was for Justin. Justin, because you are in Orlando, just kind of curious if you could take us through the mechanics of what it was like getting into the bubble, kind of the process of that everyone had to go through and experience just to gain admission there.
Sure. So it's what, 4:08 p.m. Eastern here. So I've been here. We landed about 7:15 last night. I'll tell you, Eric, the weirdest thing was getting on a plane again after first 4 months, even though it was a familiar Delta charter and the familiar seat. But one, it's a long flight. It's 4 hours. And then when we landed, we had I will say in general, the NBA has done a great job on logistics. I mean, they're literally putting on something that's been unprecedented by any team sport ever. And the logistics they executed very, very well last night and continuing today. We landed at the airport. They've got 2 Disney Cruise Line buses for us. So some of the guys were asking where their Mickey Mouse ears were. We didn't get those off the bus. We had a police escort to the hotel, which Orlando traffic can be troublesome sometimes. So it was only 25 minutes to the hotel. And as soon as we get to the hotel, we get ushered right into a room where Mark Tatum, Jerome Pickett, a few other NBA executives gave a short presentation to the players, about 15 minutes. And we immediately got tested right then and there. As soon as we finished our tests, they gave us our Disney bands, which function as our room keys and the ways we pay for them. And we get this bright green wristband to show that we are under quarantine. And then we go straight to our rooms. So they brought us dinner last night, breakfast and lunch today. I'll get a second, provided the first one comes back negative, which we're waiting this afternoon. Tonight, we'll get another test at about 9 o'clock. The technicians will come to each room and do the test. And then once we get a second negative test, which we should know sometime in the morning, we're out. And so if you want any reviews about the hotels or restaurants or what Disney looks like, I have no idea. I've seen the lobby for about 15 seconds and then the inside of the rooms. The rooms are nice. They're well appointed. It's a fairly new hotel too. So far, so good.
Thank you.
Okay, next question, Ryan Miller, KSL.
This one's for Dennis. So obviously Justin's in Orlando. What was kind of the process of cutting the traveling party to 35? And can you kind of give us a rundown of who went?
Yeah, so I prefer not to get into all the specifics because it would take up so much time on this call, Ryan. And frankly, we gave Quinn and Mike Elliott, our VP of Health Performance, the lion's share of say on who went down to the Orlando campus. And the biggest consideration were those people that were in service to the players. Not to say that those who stayed back weren't of great service, but obviously Quinn and Mike had to make those cuts. And those were very agonizing decisions. But hands-on players, Mike Elliott uses the Fusionetics discipline. And for those of you who don't know what Fusionetics is, it's simply stated joint mobility. So our players get on a table 15 minutes before practice, 15 minutes after practice, same thing with games. And it's quite a dynamic process to make sure that their bodies have alignment and proper joint mobility. And so that as an example, those people that had hands-on players, frankly, we took a lot more of those than we did just one management person with Justin. I think Justin, frankly, was the right person to go from a management standpoint. Justin's great at putting out fires. He's got a service-based mentality. And frankly, for me, I do some of my best work relative to draft, free agency, and trade deadline prep using our facility. We have a great setup the Millers provided with Zions Bank basketball campus. And the theater where we do a lot of our diligence is my best place to work relative to player personnel. So we've spent literally hundreds of hours in there in prep for the next period, which will be the draft period on October 16th. So best practices, priority work, all dictated a very tough set of choices. But frankly, we supported the league. The travel party did need to be cut down per medical recommendation. And normally we can travel 55 to 60. And so cutting it down to 35, you guys can do the math. There were some tough choices there.
Okay, thanks. Next question will be from Sarah Todd, Deseret News.
Sarah, I love your office.
Thank you very much. I'm driving to California, so this is what you get.
Very cool.
This is for either of you, both of you, whoever feels like they want to answer the question. I'm wondering kind of what overall team evaluation looks like considering the situation. Normally you head into the playoffs and starting out the year, you have expectations based on acquisitions in the previous summer, and you're expecting to get to a certain spot. With everything that has happened in the last few months, and not only that, but the injury to Bojan, the possibility of Mike Conley missing games, does that change how you're going to evaluate maybe how far you go and what that's going to mean for the future of the team?
So I'll handle the first part, and then I'll let Justin jump in if he wants. I don't think it changes as much as it does contextualize the season. And again, I've stated before, an NBA season is a series of short stories with, hopefully a lot of success, but defeats and trying periods. And, obviously this season we could write a book relative to the COVID-19 hiatus, the social justice hiatus that has made this season much different. With that said, Sarah, and I'm glad you asked it because I wanted to address this, sometimes my critiques can be pretty strong of us internally, coaches, players, management, scouts, you name it. And watching our coaches, our health performance people, and our nutrition as well, and our players perform during the hiatus. I was just talking to Steve Starks in this, I'm in awe of how much work that we put in. Our players are in terrific shape. They're very excited to compete. And so I think we'll be formidable because we have a hungry group that does want to come together, that does have a baseline level of fitness. It was very important for us not to lose our fitness level. A big piece of improvement, and I don't know if this will manifest itself so much in the 8 play-in or seeding games in the playoffs, but a big piece of improvement when a college freshman becomes a sophomore, when a rookie becomes a second-year player, they get a chance to get away, reflect, take in information that the organization has for them, the coaches have. So I've seen a lot of growth. Jarrell Brantley is at the lowest playing weight that he's been since he's frankly been in college. George Niang has a different level of fitness because of his discipline towards working out and his calorie intake. Tony Bradley, you guys have heard from, and I would echo a lot of what Tony said relative to his physique and the work that he put in. Mike Conley has continued the Fusionetics program that Mike Elliott set forth, and it's a real fundamental way to tackle your health performance, and reports that feels better now than he's had in years. I can just really, frankly, go on and on relative to that measure, and so I think it gives us a chance to be very formidable, Sarah, once we start moving to games.
Okay.
Justin, anything you would add?
Okay. All right. We'll move on to Andy Larson, Tribune. Andy.
Hey guys, wanted to ask, I know you guys are, thinking about what this quote unquote off season looks like. You've got a decision on Jordan, mid-level exception, et cetera. Do you know anything on what the cap level will look like? And then of course, given that there have been layoffs and furloughs at Larry H. Miller, do you have what kind of spending, what kind of money do you have available from ownership if that is something that you want to do this summer?
Thanks, Andy. Yeah, got it. Relative to the first question on the cap, we want to know as quickly as possible. To be fair to the league, they've been dealing with some unprecedented events, and they're trying to move 22 teams to Florida as we speak. So we've certainly lobbed in our calls and given our opinions. I would say this: we have definite opinions internally, and I'm not at liberty to share per the rules, but what the cap should look like. We definitely have some opinions on what's healthiest for the league and for the Utah Jazz specifically. And then as far as the funding question with the Millers, I get the question, Andy. The only thing that I could tell you is they've never said no to one of our requests relative to arena renovation, rebuild, building out our front office, creating an analytics department that didn't exist in 2012. We've been fully funded. I know we've been one of the lower payroll teams, Andy, as well over the years, but that was a strategic choice to be a little bit more flexible to the point where we can make a marriage with Bojan Bogdanovic relative to having cap room and him wanting us, and we thinking that it's fundamentally a good price. So my expectation going forward relative to that is that the Millers will fully fund any requests that we have regarding player personnel.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Next question, Tony Jones, Athletic.
Hey, this question is for Dennis. Thank you, Dennis and Justin, for taking the time. What does if there's a quote unquote best case scenario for Orlando, what does that look like for you guys?
I usually try to anticipate the questions, but I didn't anticipate that one, so I'll have to just go with gut here. One, that our players and staff are safe. That's physically, emotionally, spiritually, Tony. I think all of us recognize where competition fits in the scheme of things, and I do think competition's important for our community, for our society. I think the platform that our players have to talk about social justice and their causes are very important. Frankly, I'm proud, Tony, to be part of this league. Adam Silver, I've said this before, but I think he's the definition of a modern leader. So I think expressing those measures that Nigel Williams-Goss, Jordan Clarkson, Mike Conley, Rudy Gobert, Donovan Mitchell, Quinn Snyder have all said that are important to our group. Certainly would supersede the competition. And then one thing that Steve Starks and I talk about all the time, we just talked about this morning, we're paid to do our jobs and do them well. And you guys critique us, and rightfully so. You're a medium to the fans, so it's important for us to go and compete great. And if we do that, then we can certainly live with the results. You know, I don't have a win total, Tony, on the 8 seeding games. I think a lot of that will be dependent upon matchups and health and rhythm, because home court is out the window. But make no mistake, you know, we want to go to Orlando and compete and be great.
Okay, great. Next question, Eric Woodyard, ESPN.
What's up, Jay-Z? What's up, Dennis? How y'all doing?
Good, Eric. Good to hear from you.
Good, thanks, man. The question I have for you guys, obviously, you know, within the Jazz organization, you guys always pretty stay tight-lipped, you know, low controversy. This year, it's been a lot of things going on just within the franchise, things you can control, things you can't. Moving forward, just from this situation, finally being able to play basketball, just how can that situation of everything you guys went through, you know, shape you guys going forward? This for Dennis or Jay-Z, whichever one comfortable with.
I'm gonna let Justin handle this, and I'm very interested in his answer and see how nimble he is, Eric.
Eric, it's good to see you. Hope you're doing well in the Midwest. You're right. There was a lot of stuff that was about the Jazz when there wasn't much basketball to write about. And, you know, things I think it's been, I don't need to rehash it, all of them. They've been aptly and voluminously reported on. But I think what it has for us going forward is a chance for our players, our coaches, our management to think about what's transpired over this past year. Looking forward and enjoying being back together, even if under a huge, very unique set of circumstances now, and us being together and communicating and being open on many different levels, whether that's, you know, basketball or that's social justice or that's what the league's going to look like next year. I think through those things that it allows people to have closer relationships and an ability to stick together on this. That's what I would say is the lessons have been. And there's going to be stuff that comes up as any group goes through a year or two, especially in these unique circumstances. And the more we get to know each other and the better we play and take care of each other, those things will work themselves out. And we've had great support from ownership and management down towards the coaches and players. And I think, you know, they feel it too.
I would just add this, Eric, and obviously ESPN through Tim picked up the piece on Rudy and Donovan. And I would just say I was very impressed at how open Rudy was, how he owned certain points. And there was a real vulnerability and some self-reflection that I've just seen. Some real maturity. You know, there's some things that we all have to look at ourselves when we get critiqued. And, you know, I'm not sure I'm good at that at 51 years old, but I was quite impressed that Rudy at 28 could reflect, you know, and share how he's felt about a number of things.
Okay, we have time for one quick question. This will be from Dana Green, ABC4.
Hey guys, this is just a quick question for Justin. What do you expect the level of basketball to be like? I mean, we haven't seen this team for months now, and they haven't even practiced as a full team yet. Just really quickly, what's your expectation of the level of play you expect to see in Orlando?
I think overall we've had, to the extent that the league has allowed us to have individual workouts, our players have been diligent in their time off. Certainly this is unique, other than, you know, most off seasons is really not an off season for a player. Very rarely does anyone show up not in shape. So this 3 weeks is going to be really important in terms of developing the group bond again. I think the conditioning is as good a level as it can be given the restraints. And, you know, the 8 seeding games may not be, you know, talking about what you would think about with March or April basketball with teams being at a ramp up and a high level. I think that's the reason we're having these 8 games as well, is to get ready to prepare for the intensity of the playoffs. But by the time the playoffs start, you've talked about 5 weeks together in addition to the individual sessions before. So I think it'll approximate it. The good thing is it's not a completely new team. You know, these players have been together for 6 months. So it's not as if training camp, it's more refamiliarizing rather than learning something new. And I think that'll happen quickly with the level of basketball IQ our players have and how Quinn demands that we play and that they do that. So I think it'll be a pretty quick ramp up to get to it.
Okay, we actually do have just one more question. It will be a quick one, I believe. It will be from Dan Wilkie, LA Times. Dan.
Hi guys. Hi Justin. Hey Dennis. Quick question just for you guys in terms of you mentioned putting together the traveling party and the difficult decisions that went into that. What kind of went into the decisions of what to bring with you to make things feel like as much home as possible? Did you guys, how much consideration and time was spent in that? And if there's anything you can share as to what you actually did.
Yeah, so great question, Dan. A great deal of our time and energies were focused, and the Millers agreed to spare no expense. So we have an alternate weight room besides the one that the league is providing because we have some very specific lead-up drills inside the weight room, and we have specific equipment. So that moving truck that took that equipment was quite involved. Mike Elliott, Health Performance, we normally carry a recovering modality bag for each player. That bag and recovering modalities grew in the equipment because frankly, we're not on the road this long. So we needed to bring a lot of our equipment that we had in the practice facility and either bring it to Orlando or be able to lease it. You know, we had some opinions on nutrition and what that looks like as well. So Anthony, our team chef, is working with the chefs in Orlando, Florida, that are working with our players and staff. Quinn and his staff had technology needs. Coaches typically are quite mobile inside of their needs, but certainly there are some things that they needed that we have at the practice facility that we had to transport as well. So it was quite expensive. It was a big effort. It was well thought. There were frankly some things that we lobbied the league that we didn't get past the requirements that they had for the Disney campus. That's understandable, but we were very aggressive in pushing those requests. And then it really simply got back to what's best for the coaches, in particular the players and the staff, for their health.